at that time.
Yeah, the gravity
sometimes.
is somehow too much.
All right, we have a sports consultant with us right now on Skype from London, Shoggy Tosh, joining us now. Shoggy, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. It's good to have you join us right now. Let me say Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you. I believe Ngozi is there as well. Happy New Year to her.
Well, it's Busalami this morning. Ngozi is not on today.
Good morning.
Yeah,
morning.
all right. Now, you've been following the AFCON going on. How impressed or interesting to you, or how disappointing is it to you? Can you give us your assessment?
I've been watching it painfully because as a Nigerian, obviously, it's so painful, to watch, obviously a tournament without us represented, in it. So, and not just me, even if you're quite familiar with the social network and you do check, especially on Instagram, you see our players like Onazi, who used to be the deputy captain. I still think he's the deputy captain of the Super Eagles. Coming on and saying, "Oh, it's painful that we're not there, guys. We promise you, fans, we promise you that this will never happen again." And a number of Super Eagle players. So it's been very painful watching it. But anyway, we get on with it.
Okay.
I'm not really happy with the quality of the pitches. The waterlog. Yesterday's game. Between Uganda and Mali, and the pitches. Have been very poor. But it's been quite interesting seeing how teams have been adapting. I saw the game yesterday. I was very impressed with Egypt. I've been impressed with them. They haven't, considered any goal yet in the tournament, and just scoring 2 goals and topping their group. I haven't seen something like that before. I've watched a lot of African Cup of Nations tournaments, but they've been very effective. And one thing I noticed in tournaments is it's very important to peak at the right time. Obviously, you need to play, 3 games in your group. Play a quarterfinal, a semi-final, and then a final. So you have to peak at the right time. Walk your way around injuries, try to balance the squad, obviously make the squad happy, and all these things count, obviously. And with the background preparations and everything that you have to do, eat well, train well, Egypt is quite interesting, and you can never count them out because they just come out of the blue. They won the tournament 7 times, and I was quite impressed how they overran Ghana. And to me, I know a lot of people might not agree with me, but it looks like there's a little power shift from West Africa to a little bit of North Africa. Back in the 80s and early 90s, they used to dominate the African football, and it kind of shifted to West Africa with Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, and Ghana. Cote d'Ivoire is out of the tournament, so that was my little impression so far. If I can just summarize it,
Okay.
Senegal is also very strong, so yeah, quite interesting.
Okay, Shoggy, what's your take on Algeria? Of course, you remember the African player of the year. I went to an Algerian, and Algeria is out as we speak. What's your take on that?
Yeah, that was quite interesting. I saw Slimane, who, I'm a little bit close to Ahmed Musa, in Leicester, so I do know some of the players there. At times Slimane even gets sticks, here in England, because at times it can be very hot and at times it can be very cold. Let's not forget that, obviously we're in the same group, trying to qualify for the World Cup in Russia, and we were able to see the better side of them. And those 2 goals that he scored, everyone thinking that maybe he would score a hat-trick. He had this wonderful chance that was supposed to, nick, and he didn't grab that. Algeria's they've been having problems. Obviously, they had to change coaches 3 times within this year, last year and this year, and they just lost their coach now. And you can see that a lot of things are not going on well. And it's a lesson to us in case we haven't known that, especially in African football, in any kind of football, you have to get it right. And obviously, there's a lot of turbulence going on within the FA and the players. And it's part of what Nigeria is suffering from, we were suffering from, which was why we didn't, qualify for the Nations Cup. Part of the reasons, partly players and partly organization. So Algeria has been suffering for a little while, and I wasn't too shocked that they didn't do too well, because you could see that, there's still problems there. You can have the best player, in Africa, you can have, the best players, but if you don't play together as a team and put it out on the pitch, as you can see, there's no, small team in Africa nowadays. And even in the world football, if you don't do your homework very well on the day and you don't implement what you're supposed to implement, then you're out, and that's what happened to Algeria.
All right, now I'm still going to stay with you, Shoggy. You talked about waterlogged pitches and all of that. Now, what are all of these? Because these, one way or the other, someone is going to say, well, they impact on the quality of play. And when it comes to fans, on spectators, we didn't see as much as he would have been or he's supposed to be. But in all of this, how does it impact on the quality of the game in Africa?
We've always had these issues, for quite a while. I mean, the host, they've done a good job. They've tried. Behind the scenes, apart from, we're talking football, but obviously, CAF's website was hacked. There's a lot of focus on Gabon, because of, politics, which I don't want to go into now. So maybe that sidetracked a little bit, but, at times, we always have these fire brigade approaches. It's not just Nigeria. You have it all around Africa. Most times, it's not normally. Equatorial Guinea was good. Some years ago, but normally in the northern part of Africa, they prepare well. They have good stadiums. And they take care of it. Even here in England, it was a funny, interesting discussion. That I was having with someone a couple of days ago. A number of games had to be cancelled because we have frost and it's winter time here. I'm sure you guys are enjoying the Harmattan in Nigeria, but it's very, very cold here. At times -3, -4, -5. So at times, even a groundsman lost his job just a couple of days ago because they couldn't play football. The pitch was frozen. This is a groundsman that they've been keeping for 20 years. So the standard is quite high here. If something goes wrong, somebody has to pay. But in Africa, at times we get away with these kind of things. You could see that the teams, like for instance, yesterday you see Ghana. Ghana wanted to play, their tic-tac football, the Brazilian kind of football. But it wouldn't go because you play the ball somewhere and it's not obeying you. So funny enough, I expected Egypt to struggle a little bit more, but they kind of blended. Maybe they trained more on the pitch. Maybe, I don't know exactly what happened, but they defended deep. They played at times high. At times they played counter-attacking when they knew that all they needed was a draw. And it looks like everybody's kind of trying to avoid the Senegal kind of route because they are one of the strongest teams. Although Egypt and Morocco, that'll be a tough one. So it depends. Obviously that has affected the quality of football. But then, it's life. You have to adapt, and the person that adapts most, eats the carrot, if I can put it that way.
All right, Shoggy, we'll get back to you soon. Chukwemeka, we would like to react to some of the. Chukwuka, I beg your pardon, a rechristening for you this morning. Okay, so your reaction to the quality of football in Africa?
I think he's highlighted most of the issues that we have in this tournament. Yeah, but if you look at the quality of football in Africa, it's actually growing. We go to the World Cup, at least that's the clearest test of the quality of our football. And you see, we don't do too badly. At least the last World Cup, we had about 2 nations in the second round of the World Cup. We've gotten as far as the quarterfinals. With a little bit of good administration, I think African teams can do better than they are doing so far in the World Cup. But what gives me joy, what gladdens me is the fact that countries like Togo can qualify to go to the World Cup and not be embarrassed. Or you have smaller nations who are coming up every day, giving the bigger nations a big run for their money. It really gladdens my heart, even though it's affected Nigeria over the long run. But by and large, good football in Africa at this stage.
But is the environment good? Because that's really the question.
That's a different topic entirely. The environment, and that's why we must commend the doggedness of African players. They, against all odds, they do everything, they battle, they fight to succeed. And that's why you see a lot of them in Europe, France, England, Spain, and they're not doing badly. They are flying the African flag real high.
Okay. All right, we'll come back to this, and when we return from this break, we'll be having Mark Otabor on the program. Now, thanks. Stay with us on the program. We're not gone yet. We're going on a break, and we come back. Stay with us. Right, if you're just joining us right now, you're watching TVC Breakfast, and on the first segment today, we're talking African football. The Africa Cup of Nations is going on, or is ongoing in Gabon, and Africans are watching. Even Nigeria, that is not there. Many Nigerians are disappointed, but they're still watching to get to know what's really going on and who's going to be the African champion this time around. Now, we have with us in the studio discussing this, a sports journalist, Chukwuka Izuegbuna has been with us in here. And we also have, joining us from London, Shoggy Tosh, a sports consultant, has been with us. Right now joining us is Mark Otabor, one of our sports presenters in here. Mark, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, the AFCON going on.
Yeah.
Let's look, apart from the big boys,
Yeah.
Are there some new discoveries that, for instance, you have seen that you see them, they have never really been on the international space, but this AFCON has brought them out and you see some prospects in them?
Well, as much as it sounds that way, you would not separate the fact that quite a number of discoveries have not been made. Avram Grant, on his own part, decided to drop some key Ghanaian players to actually bring youths into the system, because I think he felt, there's always this, feeling with top players in the team, holding teams to ransom. I think Avram Grant, being a foreign coach, he felt, look, I don't owe you explanations. I have to bring in new crop of players. So far, well, I have seen, players that have actually shown promise in this particular tournament. Kabanga of DRC Congo has been very fantastic, and he's been very clinical in front of goal. And I sort of enjoy his style of play. And I also understand that there's this particular, I can't remember his name now, from Mali, very young, and he showed a lot of promise while playing against his team in the tournament. And so far, it's not been bad, but there have been some very crucial historical moments with the Egyptian goalkeeper being the oldest, 44-year-old, and yesterday he was jumping about like a 16-year-old, and people were wondering, what's this guy on? And he's the only surviving goalkeeper because all the other goalkeepers are injured. And Egypt, as a team, also is the only team so far that has not conceded a goal in the tournament. So a lot of surprises are still yet to come. So
really, it's not about the age, perhaps. It has to do more with the attitude of the players?
Well, sometimes age comes into play. Now, it depends on the momentum that is surrounding the player. It depends on the coach. That is where man management comes into play. No matter how old the player is, if he's the only one available, a coach that understands football, there's a way, you tilt the mind of that player to understand that, look, this is a tournament. You don't have to look at your age right now. Just do what you have to do for the country and for the team. And at the end of the day, you see results churning out. Because why? He's been able to listen to instructions and do what he's supposed to do.
Yeah, because I want to bring back the issue of Sunday Olise and the Vincent Enyama case that happened here in Nigeria. Some kind of petulant attitude, you would say, between the coach and the goalkeeper.
First of all, Sunday Olise, for me, was a fantastic choice for the Super Eagles. I'll tell you why. We have always been clamoring for the Made in Nigeria, prospect to come into play. Amaju Pinnick did not do a bad job by bringing him into the country. He was trusted with the fact that he was an ex-international. He's trusted because he's done fantastically well for big clubs like Borussia Dortmund back in the day while he was playing. He's been trusted for that fantastic goal against Spain at the France-Nigeria World Cup. And you discovered that while he came into the picture, the only mistake he made was the fact that he did not settle down to understand the language of Nigerians. They supported him quite all right, but you needed to be a bit patient with your rash decisions. That is where man management came into play. His man management was very poor because you're coming into a team where you have a Vincent Enyama who was very committed. Nigerians love that guy. Come rain, come shine, Vincent Enyama is in camp. And now you want to choose a captain. You feel he should be dropped for an Ahmed Musa. When did Ahmed Musa join the Super Eagles setup? Even if you're going to bring him into play, at least make him an assistant, captain. So when he's on the
or even some kind of consultation with the guys who have been on ground.
Yeah, you see, Sunday Olise got it wrong the moment he allowed bad blood into the team. You don't do that. Let me quickly divert a bit. Diego Costa recently had, issues with going to China. Now, Antonio Conte understood the bad blood involving in that particular transfer. He knew that if this guy continues to train with the first team, he would affect the mentality of the other players. Because at a point in time, the players said they never doubted Costa's loyalty to the team. Suddenly, they started hearing rumors about a move to China. That broke down a certain sort of relationship. And you know what Conte did? He pulled him out of the squad. He didn't play that particular game preceding the week where the rumor was flying around. He said, no, don't come close to the team. Go far away. I have a group of boys here who understand my philosophy and they're going well. You might come to infiltrate them.
Exactly,
you get
and contaminate.
Yes, exactly. So when the whole rumor died down, what happened? He brought him back into the setup and the love continued. Olise, on his own part, didn't do well, and he was so frivolous with the social media. Go on there and blast, forgetting that you are dealing with Nigeria. And this is the only country where football unites us. When you hear a goal, those clamoring for Biafra don't even remember Biafra anymore. They shout a goal. You see, you came into a country where football is the only unifying factor, and you did not even do your job well to manage.
Even has a Nigerian himself.
Exactly. That's what happened. Yeah.
All right. Maybe from some perspective, some would say, well, if you have it technically and you can man-manage, if I have to borrow your word there, then you still haven't gotten it right. So the clamor for the made in Nigeria stuff, at the end of the day, may not even be the argument after all. We'll come back to that.
All right.
Let's bring in Shoggy Tosh. Let me come to you on this. I know you've been following our discussions all the while. Now, if we had to make comparison between the big boys on the African continent right now, the biggest players right now, how do you compare them to the years of George Weah, to Roger Milla, Samuel Eto'o, Austin Okwoche, Kanu Nwankwo, and how do you weigh them side by side?
I'll come to that just in a minute, Mike. But I'm someone that I like to add a little of. I won't say I'm not a comedian, but I like a lovely atmosphere which we're having right now. So I can't help but admire this wonderful blue tie that you have on. And Bussy as well. I can see a nice chain on her neck. You guys, I can see sign of good living. So
Thank you.
That's just
Thank you, Shoggy.
Smile a little bit before I get into what I want to say. George Weah, I mean, you just mentioned that name and, you brought, a huge smile to my face. Who cannot but remember, that wonderful goal that he scored, for AC Milan, when he just dribbled all the way, from the back, and coming to score, and him winning, the best European, player and the best world player as well, that was wonderful. Times have changed, and then, in the 80s and early 90s, and especially 90s, because Africa did very well, in 90s. In the 70s, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, were trying, and 80s we had Cameroon that was doing very strong, in African football, and then qualifying for the World Cup, Roger Miller's and what have you, and the early 90s, and a little bit, towards the mid 90s and towards the 2000s, Nigeria obviously did very well. Things are a little bit different now. I felt the hunger was like more then. Also, bless the memory of Stephen Keshi, who would have clocked one just a couple of days ago. He had to lead, the exodus, into the Belgian league and do a lot of things. So I felt like then, because players were just testing waters for the first time, the hunger was, very, very much more. Our administration that time was like a little bit better, and then you could see the players repeat. They were enjoying their club football, they were enjoying, the national football. I mean, a lot of the players those times, not all of the players that we had those times. Speaking about, even Kanu, speaking about, George Finidi, George Weah, as you said, Ayu, Ale, a lot of them were having great times, great time. Champions League finals, in UEFA Cup finals, remember the days of, Finidi and Kanu in Ajax and what have you. So they've done very well. But now, it's kind of drying up, it's kind of drying up. We still have, very, very good players, There's still Yaya Toure, and a lot of good players are doing well, but I don't think it's the same as the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s.
Shoggy, you did mention that the times have changed really, and more money now. You have more money to throw around. Is that the problem with the players? More conscious, more money conscious than just being hungry for football? Is that the problem?
Oh yes, yes. I was trying to be like a politician there, but you pushed me to to say more. But money has a huge say in what we're talking about. In those days, there was money because compared to how the market was, compared to how the economy was, it was still a lot of money. Excuse me. Even if you, earn £10,000 or 10,000 euros or $10,000 a month, compared to probably what you were earning, if you came from an African league, that was like a huge difference. But now the money is like obviously more stupid. People talk about the salaries of players and they forget the bonuses, they forget, the adverts that they do, they forget the incentives that they get, at times when they win tournaments, they get a lot of more money than even what you think or what you're aware of. So it's difficult to stay focused, when you have that much money. But we still have players. I mean, when you're saying money, Messi's played very well. Ronaldo, is paid very well. Tevez is paid very well, but they still bring, the goodies. They still perform year in, year out. So we can't just blame the money. And when you look at a lot of the South Americans, or you look at Ronaldo who plays for Portugal, you can see that these guys growing up wanted to play for their countries. They want to play big football. They know the the you know what other players have done, like Eusebio, you know, that's passed on as well. You know, Ronaldo could see what he has done for Portugal, and you just want to beat those records. You want to do same with Rooney. Rooney saw what Charlton has done, and that's one of the reasons why he didn't go to China earlier. He wanted to beat that, you know, score that goal record. So they want to live up. That passion is there. You can't just put it on the players. Also, the admin as well, the administration. You know, they have to do a great job to want the players to play for either their countries or their clubs. I mean, like here, when you play for your country, they give you an actual cap, a physical cap, so you can actually count, you know, how many games you've played. All these little things, you know, little appreciation, it goes a long way. At times we lack that a little bit in Africa, and that makes the players not want to give as much as it would. Also, there's the issue of insurance. You know, if as a player, I mean, if you're insured, and then you know you're not playing for your club, which they pay your money, you know, that is where you earn your living. And then you want to break your leg for your country, that's another thing. You know, but in South America, you know, you can see that love and that passion, and it's not always there. You could see Messi's statue, messed up with it and stuff like that. So at times you have issues, but there's a way that, you know, in the first world countries, some of the second world countries, they carry along the players in the right way, and they also perform irrespective of what they earn.
Some people have really wondered that, is this a case of neo-colonialism when it comes to football, where our footballers in this part of the divide are being poached by the Western world with more money, really?
Anyway,
okay, are we going on break?
Yeah, maybe that question will be directed to Chukwuka, but when we come back on, let's go on a break, and we come back on the program and.
Watching TVC Breakfast, and our first topic this morning is the AFCON competition going on without Nigeria. But we have wonderful guests with us here in the studio. We have Chukwuka Izuegbuna, who is a sports journalist, and our own Mark Otabor is here with us, our sport presenter, and right from London is a sport consultant, Shoggy Tosh. All right, just before we went on break, we're talking about neo-colonialism, where our players are being poached. Of course, lured away because of money. Brain drain, not just in the world of medicine, it's happening now in the world of sports. Your take on that?
I wouldn't call it neo-colonialism. Okay. I won't call it poaching. We are the ones who want the money, okay, and we would strive. The average footballer in Nigeria wants to play in Europe because it's good money. When you come back, you are king in the country. But just to buttress a little bit of what Shoggy said, one thing that we missed out back then was the fact that most of our players pick their trade, they learn their trade on the streets. On the streets, it's about flair, it's about creativity. Then you go to Europe, they add the technique, the style to it, and that's what made the players we had then, the JJs who had flair with a bit of European technique. And when you bring that together, you have fantastic, beautiful football. You just, even when they don't win, you are happy you came to watch them. But now, there's so much money in the game, it's about winning. So you tend to sacrifice flair for objectivity. So you just want to win.
Does that not affect our local football here? Really, that's the
Even
question.
Our local football has started imbibing that. You want to win. So most times, you don't want a player messing around with the ball, trying to dribble. And when the dribble comes off, it's beautiful to watch. But if it doesn't come off, everybody is shouting. It could cost you a goal. And if it costs you a match, you're losing.
There are consequences.
Yeah, there are consequences for it. So that's why you see a lot of coaches tend to, especially coaches from England, tend to clamp down on flair. Let's use techniques like you're playing a game of chess, and we know that chess can be boring.
But isn't that where the beauty of this game lies?
The flair.
That flair, that thing.
Yeah,
you know, entertainment and all of
yeah,
that.
that's what fans want to see. But now, like you said, times have changed.
The task of the coach is different.
Yes, it's different. He has to win because there's so much money riding on this. And then, like you said, times have changed. Now we have a different culture where I'm a Chelsea fan, you're an Arsenal fan, and it's about bragging rights. I want to say that I beat your team, or I finished ahead of your team. Yeah. So you just want to see your team win anyhow they do it.
All right. All right, thanks for staying with us. Still on TVC Breakfast, we're discussing African football, and we have with us Chukwuka Izuegbuna with us. In here we have Mark Otabor and Shoggy Tosh joining us on Skype from London. Now, Mark, let's talk about rankings.
Okay.
Nigeria is not in this tournament in AFCON so far, and other countries, the big countries that are supposed to, Algeria, for instance, that stands somewhere good, is falling out. What impact will this have on their rankings?
It's going to affect our rankings seriously because on the bounce we have lost out on 2 AFCON tournaments. So that for me is a low for Nigerian football and the pedigree of Nigerian country as a whole. And talking about rankings also, you see, we cannot afford to be looking at rankings right now because we have to get things right. We have a World Cup qualifier right in front of us, and we need to qualify for the World Cup. If we focus on rankings, we might leave out on the best way to actually do the right things, because in recent times we've discovered that rankings really do not have any much impact because there have been controversies when these rankings come out. Sometimes you perform well and you wonder, why are you still in this particular position? What criteria does FIFA actually use in drawing up this ranking? So Nigeria as a whole, we are always not affected with the rankings. We are always concerned about the quality of football and how we can qualify. Now, for Nigeria right now, we have not been to 2 AFCON tournaments, and that is not so cool for the country, and Nigerians are not happy. Yes, people will say, well, the competition wasn't like it used to be because Nigeria is not there, but I disagree because the competitiveness is so clear that even if we're not there, you could still see some flair, you could still see some action. And the Senegal, you have Sadio Mane doing the job, Egypt, Morocco. Hervé Renard actually coached Ivory Coast and got the Nations Cup the last time, but this time around he eliminated them with a lone goal victory while he's coaching Morocco. So you can see the whole beauty is still in play. So talking about rankings, it really doesn't come out so good when it has to do with us. But we've enjoyed some beautiful rankings at some point when we do well. But when we don't perform well, trust me, now that we're not in this tournament, it's going to really, really affect us.
Wow.
Okay. What's your take on that?
I've never been a fan of the rankings. I've never seen it as a true reflection of
what's on ground.
the teams. Yeah. For instance, Algeria is second on the ranking in Africa. Sorry, they are 5th on the ranking in Africa. And if you look at the quality of matches they played, look at the teams they've beaten. Ethiopia, Seychelles, Mauritania. Look at those are the teams that but whenever they play the big teams, the Cameroons, the Senegals, they fall apart, and they are 5th on the table in the rankings for Africa. So for me, it's not a true reflection of what the state of the teams.
All right, let me bring in Shoggy in here. Shoggy, there is this philosophy of no interference in football. On the African continent, almost all countries are the ones sponsoring football tournaments and football teams, national teams, and all of that. And they still say there shouldn't be interference. We don't get to see much of sponsorship from corporate organizations. So how do we reconcile the philosophy of no interference and then the government are still the ones rolling out all the monies?
Well, you mentioned it there, Mike. We have that a lot, in Africa, and especially in Nigeria. It's not in all countries in Africa because, you have some good countries in Africa, like probably Morocco and even Egypt, with all what they're going through in their country right now. They still are able to maintain, a good head, when it comes to admin and what have you, and sponsorship and everything. But when you go abroad and you see the way life is abroad, because in life you can't, it's not about, first world countries, second world countries, third world countries, whatever. You have to emulate the best. If there's anybody very good, you want to emulate them, you want to become better. So when you come to Europe, especially Europe, you go to America and what have you, you can see all these things in place, not just in football, but, in whatever sports. You have to prepare well, you have to provide for the players. And there's so many things that, at times you do have, the economy affecting, the sports in that country. But for instance, here in England, we have the lottery, and that helps a lot to help, sports stars, the great sports stars, and well, not many in football, in athletics and some other, sports, and they now, take care of them, the sports psychology, how you prepare after games, how you warm down, how you warm up, and all these kind of stuff. And at times we lack that. And obviously, when the government comes in, you can't say the government should interfere, because if I'm paying your salary, and I want to inquire about something and you're telling me I can't interfere, obviously that's a problem. So it's up to our, administrators, the NFF, for instance, in Nigeria in particular. I know they're trying, but obviously the results, everything goes, hand in hand. if you're not doing very well, a product, if you're not, top of the range, how are you going to get sponsorship? Do you understand? So, and it goes back to our grassroots. You remember in the 90s, Finidi came from Calabar Rovers. You remember the Wanyaus, the BCC Bocos and what have you. The Abiola Bears, back in the days, IICC and all that. The league was very healthy. Do you understand? And that reflected on the national team. So it's not just the national team. You're talking about the ladies as well. You saw what happened, not going back, when they were not paid after the one, at their, African, championship. So all these things are very negative, marks on the nation, and sponsors will not, queue up for stuff like that. So we have to get our house in order. You have to see as a product. So Nigeria is a product, Super Eagles is a product, the Falcons are a product, so we have to, make it, attractable. And then obviously how we manage funds and all that, we have to make sure that, we do a lot, and all these things, they help. Here, even when sponsors help out, they always insist that, the money has to go a lot to the grassroots. They have, dots that, you have to follow. So these are things that we have to emulate. We're talking about this so far, and we need to get it right, in Nigeria and in Africa as well.
Okay. All right, Shoggy, let's talk about African coaches. Which of them is doing it for you right now? Mark mentioned Evergrande, perhaps Nigeria's Roar.
I do like Evergrande, obviously, as a Chelsea fan, he did coach Chelsea before, and what I admire about him is he's not like an extraordinary coach. You could see that, he's a good, a people manager, if I can put it that way, a good person manager, similar to Harry Redknapp or similar to Sam Allardyce, who would, they've got their, obviously as a coach you have to go through, get your badges and know what you're doing, but they're very good with people, and when footballers have big egos, so if you know how to manage that, you see that they'll do well. So it's been interesting to see how he's been handling Ghana, obviously, and it's been announced that after the tournament he's probably going to leave Ghana. Maybe they're still going to try to hold, if he has a very good tournament, maybe they hold on to him and make sure that he goes to the World Cup. But I've been very impressed with Abraham. I can see that Ghana hasn't peaked yet, and you can't count Ghana out because obviously they've lost their scorer yesterday, to injury, and you never know what's going to happen. But I've been impressed with him, I must say.
All right. Chukwuka, we have to round off, but I have to ask you this as we close. Which country do you think is going to go home with the cup?
Wow.
It's a tight one, I know.
How would you do that?
My heart says Senegal.
Okay.
But my head says Egypt.
Wow. Mark, how about you?
I totally disagree.
All right. Let's hear if your head and your heart is saying the same thing.
In sync.
I'm looking at Morocco, DR Congo.
Okay. DRC?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes,
why?
I'm telling you, because you see, DRC are a very disciplined team. If you watch them play, they play cohesive football. There is no man stylish, kind of play in their team. They are very cohesive when they play. They are very compact.
Sorry to cut you in. If you look at Egypt, they've got way so much experience. They know how to handle the big occasions. They never get faced. Like you've noticed, they've not considered any goal. They've not been playing fantastic football.
Exactly.
But they just know how to manage situations. When you think...
Shoggy did mention that earlier, really.
Yeah, when you think they're not going to get the job done, you just be surprised. They came to Nigeria.
They're like the Germans, maybe.
Yeah, they're effective.
All right. Okay. Now, Shoggy, thank you. But let me ask you, just in 1 second, which country are you tipping to take the cup home?
I'm thinking Senegal, but then they have to cross that hurdle with Cameroon, which is going to be a tough one.
Okay. All right, Shoggy Tosh, thank you very much for joining on the program.
And Senegal, DRC.
DRC, Morocco. Yeah,
Morocco. Chukwuka, thank you very much for coming.
And
Mark Otabor, thank you very much for coming as well.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll go on a break, and when we come back, we'll be discussing another topic.